Good morning, folks, and welcome to Power Negotiating. Today's session is going to be about the word no. And one of the things you have to understand about the word no is it's one of the first things that we learn as a kid. If we're ever doing something and our parents don't like it, they say no. Reed, stop that. And it's one of the first instincts that a person has. If they don't understand something, they're taught to say the word no. Zig Ziglar says that when someone says no, N-O, what they're actually saying is they don't know, K-N-O-W, enough about the situation. And so our job is to educate them so that if they say no, you don't hear it. You become slightly hard of hearing when they say the word no. Now when they say the word yes, we have very good hearing, but when they say the word no, I want you to become almost deaf and continue on. Real quick story. Back in the Cuban Missile Crisis, JFK and Robert F. Kennedy were really concerned in negotiating with the Russians because they wanted to have this missiles removed from Turkey, I believe it was. And they were really concerned about this. And they gave this ultimatum, and the Russians came back and they said something, and John F. Kennedy said, you know, if we just not heard that, everything would have been approved. And so, gosh, you know, we heard this message, we heard what they said, and so the deal's off. And Robert F. Kennedy said, what happens if we were deaf? JFK said, what do you mean? Let's just proceed as if we never got that second message. And so they proceeded as if they didn't get that second message, and the Russians went through with this, and so we did not have the end of humanity as we know it. So when you're listening to somebody and they say the word no, I want you to be slightly deaf there and not hear that. Whenever someone says the word no, what are they actually saying? I don't know enough to make an informed decision. And so they might say the word no. And so what I do is I say, I understand exactly what you're doing. I understand exactly what you're saying, and we're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is this. And you restate it in a slightly different way, but the same basic principles are intact. And remember, we were talking about the backtrack conditional close. And so if someone says the price is too low, and so you say, so the price is too low. Assuming we can deal with that, are there any other issues? And when they hear their own words stating their objections, sometimes they'll just say, well, that's ridiculous, I'm not going to object to that. And you go on anyway. Assuming we can deal with that, are there any other objections? They say, no, great. Why don't we go ahead and move forward and sign right here, and we're good to go. They just said no. What did we do? We were slightly deaf. We didn't hear the word no. What we heard was, I really don't feel comfortable with that, and I need one more affirmation, I need one more hand-holding session before I go all the way with this deal. Great. When someone says the word no, be prepared to not hear them. I remember one time, I was doing this loan, and it was a $400,000 loan, and I was getting something like $7,000 in commissions and things on this. And at the closing table, they backed out. And I went to my boss and said, boss, they backed out. I thought the deal was dead. He said, Reed, get down on your knees and apologize for being so stupid. I said, what are you talking about? He said, what you want to do is you've got a $7,000 commission there. Is there any way that you can save this? Would you be happy with $5,000 rather than zero? I said, yeah. He says, great. Call them up and explain that you are sorry, that something, you didn't explain something right, and if there's any way that you can make this happen, obviously you didn't explain this right, what can we do to make this right? And I gave up something like $1,500 in yield spread and adjusted their situation slightly better. They said yes, we went forward with the deal. How expensive is your pride? Would you give up just a little bit to make the deal go through? So don't be afraid to apologize. And I don't say I was wrong. What I'll say is, folks, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm a big idiot. And they'll say, Well, what do you mean, Reed? Obviously, I didn't communicate something well enough, and there was something that you didn't understand that I messed up on, and because I think this is a great deal, what did I mess up on? Because I'm a big idiot. What was it that you really have a concern with? And you have just abased yourself before them, and you've given them the opportunity to say, well, I really have a problem with this. Now, if we could deal with that, are there any other issues? Okay, let's go forward with this. I would rather have 5,000 than 0 on a deal. I'd rather have 25,000 than 0 on a deal. I'd rather have 100,000 than 0 on a deal. So ask yourself, do you need to get the last nickel of every deal? Here's something I was taught by Jimmy Napier a long time ago. Jimmy Napier was a real estate guru in the 70s and 80s. And he would say, always leave something in it for the next guy. You say, what does that mean? Always leave a little bit of profit there for the buyer. Leave a little bit of something there for the seller. Give them a reason to go forward with this deal. If you make all the money and everyone else loses, guess what? They're probably not going to want to do business with you again. If you give them just a little bit and congratulate them on doing such a good deal, congratulate them on negotiating so well, and you put some money in their pocket, they'll be much more likely to want to do business with you again. So don't be afraid to get down on your knees and say, I'm sorry, I didn't explain something correctly. Obviously, I'm a big idiot because I didn't explain how this benefits you, and if I made a mistake, I want to know what it is so I can do better the next time. But is there any way that we can fix this? If there's one thing what's your biggest concern here? If we can fix that, can we possibly think about this? Now, I call this a walk away. They've already said no. They've walked away from the deal. And I've said, so I have nothing to lose here. And they've walked away from the deal, and so I'd rather have something than have nothing. So I will go ahead and negotiate strong in order to get something at this point. Now, you have to ask yourself, how far will I go? One of the best things I always do is every time I do a deal, I break down the cost analysis. What is this going to cost me to do the deal? And I want to find out what's my break-even point. And I consider the break-even point the edge of the cliff. And the closer I get to the edge of that cliff, the less likely I want to go there. But if I know where the edge of the cliff is, and I'm still a long distance away from that edge of the cliff, from breaking even, I can negotiate a little bit. If I'm right here, and they want more, so I'd be upside down, I don't want to do that deal. So you always have to know what your costs are. You always want to know what your closing cost, your cost of funds, your marketing cost, you want to know what all of your costs are, and when you know that, you're going to be able to make an informed decision, and you're going to be able to negotiate in an informed manner.